So to continue my look at the history of movies and how I fit into these, I'm going to do another one of my best year top tens. And following up from my recent 1955, I'm going now on to do 1956. Of course, I was only 2 years of age when these came out, but I can assure you I've watched all of them, and very recently as well. I've got a very soft spot for the 50s and the 60s, and so we're going to run through my top 10. A few that didn't quite make it. Trapeze, an excellent film starring Burt Lancaster and Tony Curtis, about an aging trapeze artist who decides that he has to quit because of injury and becomes a sort of coach. There's a woman involved as well, and both men seem to have some affection for her. Good movie. Friendly Persuasion, which is a movie with Gary Cooper, which looks at a pacifist who's reluctant to fight in the Civil War. Alexander the Great, which is Marlon Brando, and it's pretty good, I think. He's Anthony. No, he's not. He's Alexander the Great. Yeah, I've got those roles mixed up, but never mind. It is worth a watch. Tea House of the August Move. This is a Marlon Brando film, and he's cast as a sort of a Japanese sort of type character. I haven't seen that for a while, and I must do. But those are the ones that didn't make the cut. Now I'm going on to my top 10 then. At number 10 is Baby Doll. This is directed by Elie Kazan, and it stars Carl Morden as Archie, a middle-aged husband. It stars Carol Baker as his very, very young wife, and Eli Wallach is a bit of a sort of enemy of the husband. So those are the three key characters. It's based on a strip by Tennessee Williams, and it traces the comedic aspects in Mississippi of this triangle. Malden has married Baker, but has agreed not to consummate the marriage until she's 20 years of age, which is fast approaching. She's also got the interests of the Sicilian Eli Wallach, who's absolutely superb in this. He's also dying to get her between the sheets. And it's a serious comedic look at how men have used and abused, or attempted to, young women. But it's fairly light-hearted. Tremendous performances. At 9, there's A Time Like Alice. This is a movie that's based on a book by Neville Shute. It's directed by Jack Lee, produced by Joseph Janney, and it's set in Malaya at the time of the occupation by the Japanese army in the Second World War. And it's a tale of how the Japanese army overrun that part of Southeast Asia. They separate the men from the women in the expatriate community, and they farm the women off to a prison, and then regularly move them to different locations as a way of sort of preventing a possible recapture by the enemy. It's quite a torrid film. There's lots of rather heavy scenes of the jungle and the absolute nightmare that it was for these women. And the lead character is played by Virginia McKenna, and she sort of represents the group. The Japanese in control of this of these women prisoners of war feature quite heavily, and there's also a subplot involving some Australians who are also prisoners of war, and they cross paths with the women at one point, and McKenna is is subject to one Peter Finch, an Australian who's captured, catches the eye of McKenna, and there's a subplot about how he tries to help the group, the female group, by getting supplies to them, and it's a pretty good movie, it has to be said. So to number 8 then, The Harder They Fall. Directed by Mark Robson, screenwriter for Philip Lord Dean. It's basically a film about boxing, and the cast, well, in the lead role is Humphrey Bogart as Eddie Wallace. This was his last film before his death from cancer. He was quite unwell when he made this, but it has to be said that although it's not his best, his performance is still absolutely terrific. He's a has-been sports journalist, and out of desperation takes a job as a publicist for a fight fixer in order to get some money. Alongside him is Rod Steiger, who plays Nick Benko, and we have two professional boxers appearing in this movie as boxers. Max Baer, who's Buddy Branett, and he's the guy who has to take the fall, and Jersey Joy Walcott, who's also the heavyweight champion of the world. It helps if you've got it's based on the career of one Primo Carnera, an Italian giant who became heavyweight champion of the world in 1933. The thing about Carnera was that he wasn't particularly stylish or not particularly good as a boxer, but he was a huge man, and he is the focus of this fight fixing movie. So get watch it. So at number 7 we've got The Rack. This is directed by Arnold Levine, and it stars Paul Newman in the lead role as Captain Edward Hall Jr. Wendell Corley plays Major Moulton. Walter Pidgeon is Paul's father, Colonel Edward Hall, and Edmund O'Brien is part of the legal machinery in this movie, plays Frank Wasner, and Anne Francis pops up as the girlfriend. Lee Marvin is also in this film, very minor role. Basically what we have here, we have an American soldier who's on trial for collaborating with the enemy in the Korean War, and it's an action-packed melodrama set in the court, and it's a very good film, I think. The second of new movie by Newman that I put in my top 10. So I suggest you get to watch it, although I am a big fan of Newman, it has to be said. So at number 6 is The Killing. This is directed and written by Stanley Kubrick, and it stars, and I'm just looking, Sterling Hayden in the lead role as Johnny Clay. Alicia Cook Jr. is George Petty, and I won't go through all the cast. Let's get to a snippet of what this is about. It's a crime movie. It was made on an extremely limited budget by Kubrick. It refers to a heist at a racetrack of the sum of $200 million planned by ex-con Johnny Clay, played by Hayden. It's a gripping tale, and you really get caught up in it as we get closer and closer to the time when the money is about to be stolen. So don't miss it. It was the second movie by the great director Stanley Kubrick, so mentioning his name, it's always worth a watch. So at number 5 we've got The Searchers. Now The Searchers is a western. It's directed by the infamous John Ford, based on a novel of the same name by Alan LeMay, and the cast, it's John Wayne in the lead role as Ethan Edwards, Jeffrey Hunter as Martin Pawley, and Vera Mills as Laura Johansson. Ward Bond plays Captain Clayton, and a very young Natalie Wood plays Debbie Edwards. Now what we've got here, it's set in Texas, and Edwards returns after fighting in the American Civil War on the Confederacy side. He returns to his brother and his family and gets a welcome, although it's clear there are issues between him and his brothers. He goes out one day with his adopted nephew, Martin, played by Hunter, who's a part Indian, and when they return they find that the home has been ransacked and that most of the family are dead, and the two girls, Lucy and Deli, have been stolen. And the movie traces the efforts by the two men, Martin and Ethan, to track down Debbie and Lucy, and it's a very thrilling drama, and I thoroughly recommend you watching it. Certainly one of the better westerns that I've seen. So up to number 4 now, and this is the epic drama Giant, directed by George Stevens and starring Elizabeth Taylor, Rock Hudson and James Dean. And this was James Dean's final movie before his unfortunate death from the road traffic accident. It's a splendid watch. It's a long lengthy movie, and it covers approximately 30 years in the life of Texan cattle baron Hudson. First we find him at another ranch, and he therefore spots a very young and attractive Taylor, and he woos her to be his wife. And then the movie focuses on the triangular relationship between Hudson, Taylor and the upstart kid James Dean, who eventually, having got a small plot of land on Hudson's ranch, he then discovers oil on it and becomes a rich magnate in his own right. And this explores the relationships between the three and how they develop over this time. It's an absolute riveting watch. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think you will too. So in this rundown of the top movies, my favourite movies of 1956, we've now reached number 3, and at number 3 is Lust for Life. This is directed by Vincenzo Minnelli, and it's based on it's a biographical drama based on the life of Vincent van Gogh, who's played by Kirk Douglas, and his friendship with Gauguin, who played by Anthony Quinn. It's a tremendous piece of work, mainly because of the acting prowess of the two main characters. But we follow Van Gogh's early life as he works in a factory in a very he works in a mine in a very downtrodden part of the world in France. And the movie, of course, explores his love affair with painting and his relationship with Gauguin, which is a central part to this movie. The acting performances are 5-star, and I really think you ought to get to watch this. It's called Lust for Life. It stars Kirk Douglas and Anthony Quinn. Sorry. So up to number 2 then. Somebody Up There Loves Me, and it's directed by Robert Wise. It stars Paul Newman. It's once again it's a biography, a dramatic biography. He plays the boxer Rocky Graziano. Pierre Angeli is his wife Norma, and Everett Sloane plays Irving Cohen, and Sal Mineo is a friend of his, Romulo, and we follow the story of the rise to fame of one Rocky Graziano. We follow him through his period in the military, and then into the boxing arena, and finally to the point where he raises the belt, which signifies that he's the world champion. It's an absolutely brilliant portrayal by Newman. If you like boxing movies, then you'll revel in this. There's some tremendous scenes of his match with a number of fighters, and it's number 2 in my top movies of 1956. So finally we've reached that number 1 spot for 1956 movies, and my number 1 movie is called Crime in the Streets, directed by Don Siegel, who later went on to work with Clint Eastwood, and it stars John Cassavetes and Sal Mineo. This is an absolutely riveting movie about life on the streets in a delinquent neighborhood in an urban city in the US of A. It's very much a character study of young American male youth and how they gravitate to crime, and how their lack of opportunities, lack of good role models, poverty within their family, overcrowding, etc., leads them to gravitate to gangs, and that then leads them to crime. It's an absolutely awesome piece of work, and it's my number 1 for 1956, Crime in the Streets. So anyway, that completes my top 10. I hope you've enjoyed it. I really would welcome comments from you, particularly movies that from 1956 or from anywhere, any time period really, ones that you might recommend that I watch. I also do reviews on this channel, longer reviews of individual films, so I'm also wanting to encourage you to suggest movies that I should review. I would again suggest that you try and find these movies. If for some reason it becomes almost impossible to get hold of them, then contact me on my email account, asterhugo99@gmail.com. You'll see the closing caption for more details, and maybe I can arrange to send you a copy via Google Drive or something like that. Okay, so that's my lot. I'll be moving on, of course, to the next 1957 very shortly.